Welcome to a new program in Faculty of Communication Studios at İzmir University of Economics. We are proud of hosting Don Schultz in our university, and he's from Middle School Northwestern University, and he's visiting professor in our university in the Public Relations and Advertising Department. He's known as the father of integrated marketing communications, and he is the author of 28 books and over 150 articles. And he has been lecturing in several countries about marketing and marketing communications. He has been lecturing in China, in India, in Sweden, and in Italy, and now he's in Turkey. How long have you been in Izmir now?
I came about 6 days ago, 6 or 7 days ago.
Why did you come here?
Because I was invited. No, I came because I was very interested. I have been interested in Turkey for a number of years, and this is the first opportunity I've had to come to a university. So I'm very pleased to be here.
Great. What do you think about Turkey? What do you think about the university?
Well, I've said for a number of years that I think Turkey has a huge opportunity. It's really growing very rapidly, changing very rapidly, and that's particularly true in the commercial area. And of course, that's the area that I'm interested in. So watching the emergence of the Turkish economy, how Turks are becoming much more forward in the world and taking much more of a leadership role than they have in the past. That's what I find very interesting.
Okay, and I have been listening to your presentations in our university, and from your presentations I can say that you're mostly stressing the change in consumers, in today's consumers. So could you please describe the new consumers of today? What is the difference between those consumers?
I think the most interesting thing and the biggest changes I see is they have become much more global, much more focused externally than they have in the past. And part of that comes from the technology that allows lots of information to flow very freely and very easily. And so what I see is a group of consumers, a group of people who are rapidly changing the way they think about how they've traditionally purchased products, how they've selected things, what alternatives they have, what choices they have. And so the more technology we give them, the more informed they become and the more educated they become, and that simply leads to a radically different marketplace than historically we've had.
So you're known as the godfather of integrated marketing communications, and you have also won many awards in your area. So what do you think IMC is heading to? What's next in IMC?
Well, that's a very good, very interesting question. When we first started IMC, the whole idea was how do we put things together? And we were trying to consolidate, trying to get things to look and feel and sound the same from the marketing and the marketer. What has happened in the 25 years since we've been doing this is it's radically changed. Now we're breaking it all up as opposed to putting it together. So one of the real challenges is how do you make things seem the same and make it comfortable for the consumer, yet at the same time recognize that the world is changing.
Okay. So what's your projection for the future brands and about the consumers and brands relationships?
Well, I think the most important thing that marketing organizations can do, and particularly those who are focused on advertising and promotion, is first you have to recognize that the brand is the contact you have with the consumer. And so you have to manage what that contact is. And historically we've done that fairly easily because we had only one-way communication. We just sent out messages about here's what the brand was, and either you accepted it or you didn't. Now what we have is this interactive marketplace, interactive systems. And when you have that, you have to listen to customers, you have to understand what they're doing, and you have to be able to relate what your company, your brand, and your organization is to what their needs are, not just what your needs are.
And while I'm reading your articles, I can say that you're mostly talking about building relationships between the customers and the brands. So what do you think about this? How can brands build relationships with their customers?
Well, the first thing they need to do is understand the customers. And historically, the brand has said, here's who I am, here's what I do, here's what I want to talk about. And what we have to do today is we really have to understand what the customer is. There are, multi-millions of individual consumers in Turkey alone. And one of the challenges is how do we start to think about people and individuals as opposed to thinking about these groups that we've created called markets and said, those are millennials and they're all alike. They're not all alike, they're all individuals. And so one of the things we have to do is have to change our whole thinking patterns and start to think about people rather than the traditional markets and marketing and that sort of thing.
And you're also talking about a change in the traditional 4 Ps in marketing. So why do we need to have a change like that? And what do you offer as the new 4 Ps or the new things?
Well, when you go back and look at it, the 4 Ps essentially were a way to think about how you organize a marketing system. What are available to the marketing organization? So we had a product, we had prices that we could control, we had distribution systems or location, whatever you want to call that, and we had promotion. And we controlled all 4 of those things. And so we built marketing and communication programs around things that we wanted to control. Now, as the marketer loses control of the marketplace, you have to give that up. So what we've done is we just sort of turned that 4 Ps around and said, let's look at it from the consumer view. And that is, what's the customer interested in? What's the consumer want? What kind of information do they need? What kind of values are they looking for? And where do they want to access this? So that gives you just taking the traditional 4 Ps and turning them around and looking at them from a customer view radically changes the whole process.
Okay. And as far as we know, you're giving a lot of lectures in different countries, and besides that, you have also your own company called as Agora IMC. And while you're comparing both of the sides, the academic and the professional sides, what do you think about the intersection of academia and the industry? Do you think they will approach to each other, or do you think they just go on separately?
Well, I think it's very interesting, and what we're seeing today is, I think, a much closer alliance because both of us, both the academic community and the professional community, don't know what to do. And when neither one knows what to do, then it becomes much easier to say, well, let's work together. And I think what we're starting to see is much more of a focus on, from the academic standpoint, of how do we become much more applied, not just theoretical concepts, but how do we really apply the concepts and the theory and that sort of thing we do. And I think what the marketing organizations are doing from the professional side is coming and saying, we know what to do, but we don't know why we're doing it. So help explain to us and help us understand why consumers are doing what they're doing, and that way the two of us are going to work together. And I think there's a much more of a focus on trying to do that sort of thing today than there has been in the past.
Okay. And we know that you're doing a lot of research and you're writing many articles. What kind of research are you working on nowadays, and what kind of research topics attract your attention?
Well, the things that we're really focused on, we have gotten very, very interested and involved in what is called neuromarketing. And that is, how does the mind work? The mind is this sort of blank space. We don't really understand how people make decisions. And what we've done is we've created some technologies where I can see when your brain lights up, but I don't know why it lights up. So what we're focused on is trying to explain why people make decisions, how they make those decisions, and then trying to help them, trying to understand by doing that, try to understand how the marketer can interface with them. I think the really interesting thing is historically, advertising and public relations have all been about trying to persuade people to do things. And I think what we see today is persuasion, you can't persuade people to do anything. They have too much information, they have too much access, they have too many ways of getting additional information. And as a result, I think what we have to do is try to just simply influence them, try to understand who and what they are, and then co-create value for both the marketing organization and for the consumer.
Okay, and what do you think about the education in marketing communications? So what are the essentials of the communications, marketing communications, and how can the academia improve the education of marketing communications?
Well, I think the thing that we have to understand is that we're going to have to change, and that's pretty dramatically clear. The thing that happens, I think, is that by and large, the academic community has been focused on traditional literature. What have we learned in the past? What kind of experiments have we done? What kind of research have we done? And so on. And what we've tried to do is build on that. The problem with that is all of that research essentially has only been done one time. And it was done in many cases many years ago. You go to the academic literature today, you find people still quoting studies that were done in the 1950s. The problem is 1950s are just totally irrelevant. No one is like the 1950s anymore. So one of the things that I think we have to do is rethink what the educational process is. How do we update, how do we bring up to speed all the things that we already know, and how do we start to use that as the basis for moving forward? And so I think the big challenge for the academic community is giving up things that we think we already know and finding the things that are really new and important going forward.
Okay, so thank you very much for this nice conversation. We had an interview with Professor Don Schultz from Middle School, Northwestern University, and we talked about marketing communications, and we talked about integrated marketing communications, we talked about the education in marketing communications, and I would like to thank him for this nice interview, and we would like to have him in future again in our university.